Don't miss my story. When love began with a refusal, a single father with nothing but his bare hands rejected a $100 million contract right in front of the city's most powerful female CEO, all because his little daughter had a high fever. She was used to people begging on their knees for a chance, but he walked out of that room without looking back. That was the moment everything changed. Don't miss the story of two worlds that were never meant to meet, until fate forced them face to face. Stay until the end. Hit like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. The fluorescent lights in the hospital waiting room buzzed like trapped insects. Ethan Cole sat with his elbows on his knees, staring at the scuffed linoleum between his boots. His phone had been vibrating in his pocket for the last 20 minutes. He knew who it was. He knew what they wanted. And he didn't care. "Mr. Cole?" A nurse appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. "You can see her now." He was on his feet before she finished the sentence. The pediatric ward smelled like antiseptic and something sweet. Maybe apple juice, maybe fear masked with artificial fragrance. Ethan pushed through the double doors and found room 8. Inside, his daughter Lily lay curled under a thin hospital blanket, her dark hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. She was 5 years old. She looked smaller. "Hey, Bug." He sat on the edge of the bed, brushing the hair from her face. Her skin was hot to the touch. "Daddy?" Her voice was a whisper. "I don't feel good." I know you don't." He kept his voice steady even though his chest felt like it was caving in. "But the doctors are going to fix you up. You just got to rest, okay?" She nodded, her eyes already drifting closed again. Ethan stayed there, holding her small hand in his, until a different nurse came in to check her vitals. When he finally stepped back into the hallway, he pulled out his phone. 14 missed calls, 6 voicemails, all from the same number. He didn't listen to any of them. Instead, he scrolled to a contact labeled Office and hit dial. It rang twice before a sharp voice answered. "Where the hell are you?" "Marcus." Ethan leaned against the wall, pinching the bridge of his nose. "I'm at the hospital." "The hospital? What happened?" "Lily spiked a fever. They're running tests." There was a pause. Then Marcus said, "Ethan, you know I'm sorry about that. I really am. But you were supposed to be at Hale Industries 30 minutes ago." "I know." "You know?" Marcus's voice climbed an octave. "Do you have any idea what this meeting was? Victoria Hale doesn't give second chances. She doesn't even give first chances to most people. We've been trying to get in front of her for 8 months, and you just... I'm not leaving my daughter. I'm not asking you to leave her. I'm asking you to send someone else. Send me. Send Derek. Hell, send an intern with a PowerPoint. Just don't let this fall apart." Ethan closed his eyes. "It's already fallen apart, Marcus." "What?" "I'm not coming. Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them whatever you want." "Ethan." He hung up. For a moment, he just stood there in the hallway, listening to the distant beep of monitors and the shuffle of footsteps. Then he turned his phone off completely and went back into room 8. 20 miles across the city, in a glass tower that reflected clouds like a mirror, Victoria Hale sat at the head of a conference table and checked her watch for the 3rd time. "He's not coming," she said. Her assistant, a woman named Claire, with perfect posture and an ever-present tablet, looked up. "I'm sure he's not coming." Victoria leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. "Call his office. Find out why." Claire hesitated. "We already did. Twice. They said there was a family emergency." "A family emergency." Victoria repeated the words slowly, like she was tasting them. "And he didn't think to send anyone in his place?" "Apparently not." Victoria drummed her fingers on the table. The sound was rhythmic, deliberate. Around her, 3 board members sat in expensive suits, trying not to look uncomfortable. They'd flown in from New York specifically for this meeting. The contract they were discussing wasn't small. It was a complete overhaul of Hale Industries' internal tech infrastructure, a project worth 8 figures if executed correctly. And Ethan Cole's company, small as it was, had submitted the only proposal that didn't treat her like an idiot. She'd been looking forward to meeting him. "Reschedule," she said finally. Claire blinked. "I'm sorry?" "You heard me. Reschedule. Next week. Same time." "Ma'am, with all due respect, if he couldn't prioritize this meeting, why would—" Victoria's gaze cut to her assistant. and Claire stopped mid-sentence. "Because I want to see if he does it again," Victoria said. The board members exchanged glances, but said nothing. When Victoria Hale made a decision, you didn't question it, not if you valued your position. "Set it up," Victoria continued, standing, "and make sure his office knows this is the last time." "Yes, ma'am." Victoria walked out of the conference room, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She took the private elevator to her office on the 45th floor, a space with floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that cost more than most people's cars. She sat at her desk, pulled up Ethan Cole's file, and studied it. Small company. 5 employees, decent track record. Nothing spectacular, but solid. He'd started the business 3 years ago after leaving a corporate job. Single father. No mention of a partner. She closed the file and stared out at the city. Most people would have sent someone. Anyone. The fact that he hadn't was either incredibly stupid or incredibly principled. Victoria wasn't sure which yet, but she was going to find out. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Lily's fever broke around 3 in the morning, and the doctors said she'd be fine, just a bad virus, nothing serious. But Ethan stayed in the chair beside her bed anyway, watching the rise and fall of her chest, thinking about all the things that could have gone wrong and didn't. When the sun came up, he finally let himself relax. "Daddy?" Lily's voice was hoarse but stronger than it had been. "Yeah, Bug? Can we go home?" "Soon. Doctors want to make sure you're really okay first." She frowned. "I'm bored." He laughed despite himself. "Yeah, I bet you are. Will you tell me a story?" "What kind of story?" "The one about the dragon." Ethan smiled. It was the same story he always told, about a dragon who was scared of fire and a knight who was scared of the dark, and how they helped each other be brave. He'd made it up when Lily was 3, and she never got tired of it. He was halfway through when his phone buzzed on the side table. He'd turned it back on an hour ago, and the notifications had been rolling in ever since. This one was different. It was an email from Hale Industries. The subject line read, "Meeting rescheduled, next Tuesday, 2 p.m. Ethan stared at it. "Daddy?" "Hold on, Bug." He opened the email. It was short, formal, signed by someone named Claire Patterson. But at the bottom, there was a second note added separately. "Mr. Cole, Miss Hale would like to extend an opportunity to reconvene. She understands that circumstances arise. Please confirm your availability at your earliest convenience." Ethan read it twice. Then he looked at Lily, who was watching him with wide eyes, waiting for the rest of the story. "You good if I finish this later?" he asked. She nodded. He kissed her forehead and stepped into the hallway to make a call. Marcus picked up on the first ring. "Please tell me you got the email." "I got it. And I don't know what to think." "What's there to think about?" Marcus sounded like he was pacing. "She's giving you another shot. That's unheard of. Victoria Hale doesn't reschedule. She moves on." "Then why didn't she?" "I don't know, man. Maybe she liked your proposal that much. Maybe she's testing you. Does it matter?" Ethan leaned against the wall, running a hand through his hair. "What if Lily gets sick again?" There was a pause. Then Marcus said, quieter, "Then you do what you did yesterday." "But Ethan, if she's fine and you don't show up this time, we're done. The company's done. You know that, right?" "I know." "Okay. So what are you going to do?" Ethan looked through the window into room 8, where Lily had already fallen back asleep, her small body finally still. "I'm going to show up," he said. The following Tuesday came faster than Ethan wanted. Lily was back to normal, jumping on the couch, demanding pancakes, asking 1,000 questions about everything. Mrs. Cho, the older woman from downstairs who sometimes watched her, agreed to take her for the afternoon. Ethan paid her double the usual rate and made Lily promise to behave. "I always behave," Lily said, grinning. "Sure you do." He kissed the top of her head and left before he could second-guess himself. The drive downtown took 30 minutes. Traffic was terrible, and Ethan spent most of it trying not to think about what he was walking into. He'd prepared. He knew his proposal inside and out. He'd rehearsed answers to questions he thought Victoria might ask, but none of that stopped the nerves. The Hale Industries building was impossible to miss. It rose out of the downtown skyline like a shard of glass, all sharp angles and reflective surfaces. Ethan had driven past it 100 times but never been inside. He parked in the garage, took the elevator to the lobby, and checked in at the front desk. A security guard scanned his ID, handed him a visitor badge, and directed him to the 32nd floor. The elevator ride felt longer than it should have. When the doors opened, he stepped into a space that looked more like an art gallery than an office. The walls were white. The furniture was minimalist. Everything was clean in a way that made him hyper-aware of the scuff on his shoe. Claire was waiting for him. She was younger than he expected, maybe late 20s, with sharp features and an expression that gave nothing away. "Mr. Cole," she said, extending a hand. "Thank you for coming." "Thanks for rescheduling." She didn't smile. "Ms. Hale is ready for you. This way." He followed her down a hallway lined with abstract paintings, past a series of glass-walled offices where people sat hunched over laptops, and finally into a corner conference room. And that's when he saw her. Victoria Hale was standing by the window, her back to the door. She was tall, taller than he expected, and dressed in a way that made the word polished seem inadequate. Dark blazer, tailored pants, not a single detail out of place. When she turned, her eyes locked onto his immediately. They were gray, sharp, calculating. "Mr. Cole?" Her voice was smooth, controlled. "Please sit." Ethan sat. Claire placed a tablet on the table in front of him, then left without a word, closing the door behind her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Victoria took the seat across from him, folding her hands on the table. "I appreciate you making time today." "I appreciate the second chance," Ethan said. "Do you?" The question caught him off guard. "I'm sorry?" Most people would have sent someone in their place last week. An associate, a partner, anyone. She tilted her head slightly. "You didn't." "I couldn't." "Couldn't or wouldn't?" Ethan met her gaze. "My daughter was in the hospital, so yeah. Couldn't." Victoria didn't blink. "And if she'd been in the hospital today? Then I wouldn't be here." She studied him for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, the corner of her mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. "Interesting," she said. "Is it?" "Most people lie. They tell me what they think I want to hear." She leaned back in her chair. "You didn't." "Didn't see the point?" "No." She picked up a slim folder from the table and opened it. "I suppose you didn't." Inside was his proposal, printed, annotated, with notes in the margins and handwriting he assumed was hers. "Your plan is solid," she said. "Better than solid. It's the only one that didn't try to upsell me on features I don't need." She glanced up. "But I have questions." "I'd be worried if you didn't." "Your company is small, 4 employees if I'm reading this correctly. 5 if you count me. And you're proposing to overhaul the infrastructure for a company with 3,000 employees across 6 offices. I am. Why should I believe you can deliver?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "Because we're small. We can't afford to screw this up. The big firms? They've got a dozen other contracts. If yours falls apart, they'll survive. We won't. That makes us careful. It makes us better." Victoria's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. "You're confident," she said. "I'm honest. And if something goes wrong, then I fix it, personally." She closed the folder. "You have children." The shift in topic threw him. "Just one. A daughter." "How old?" 5. "And her mother?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Not in the picture." Victoria nodded slowly, like she was filing that information away. "That must be difficult." "We manage." "Clearly." She stood, walking back to the window. "I'm going to be direct with you, Mr. Cole. I don't make decisions lightly, and I don't make them based on sentiment. If I hire you, it's because I believe you'll deliver, not because I feel sorry for you." "I wouldn't want it any other way." She turned. "Good. Then let's talk terms." The next hour was a blur of numbers, timelines, and logistics. Victoria asked sharp questions. Ethan answered them. Claire came in twice with updated documents, and each time Victoria barely glanced at her before waving her away. By the end, they had the framework of a deal. "I'll have contracts drawn up by Friday," Victoria said, standing. "Assuming nothing changes, we'll move forward next week." Ethan stood as well, extending his hand. "Thank you." She shook it. Her grip was firm, controlled. "Don't thank me yet." He left the building feeling like he'd just walked out of a storm. His phone buzzed as soon as he hit the parking garage. It was Marcus. "How'd it go?" "She's drawing up contracts." "Holy shit. Ethan, Holy shit. Yeah. We're going to need to hire more people. I know. And upgrade the office. I know. And are you even listening? Ethan climbed into his car, tossing his bag onto the passenger seat. I'm listening. What? I don't know. Something about her. She's intimidating. Everyone says that. It's not that. Then what? Ethan started the engine. I'll tell you when I figure it out. He picked Lily up an hour later. She launched herself at him the second he walked through Mrs. Cho's door, wrapping her arms around his neck. Did you have a good day? He asked. We made cookies. Yeah? And I didn't break anything. Mrs. Cho appeared in the doorway, smiling. She was an angel. Thanks for watching her. Any time. On the drive home, Lily chattered about everything. The cookies, the cartoon she'd watched, the story Mrs. Cho had read. Ethan listened, nodding in the right places, but his mind kept drifting back to the conference room, to the way Victoria had looked at him when he'd said he wouldn't have come if Lily had been sick again. Like she didn't believe him, or like she did, and didn't know what to do with that. When they got home, he made dinner, grilled cheese and tomato soup because it was easy, and Lily would actually eat it. They sat at the kitchen table, and she told him about a game she wanted to play at school. Emma says her dad's going to buy her a trampoline, Lily said. That's cool. Can we get a trampoline? Maybe when we have a bigger yard. When's that going to be? Ethan smiled. I'm working on it, Bug. After dinner, he gave her a bath, read her 2 stories, and tucked her into bed. She fell asleep halfway through the second one. He stood in the doorway for a while, just watching her. Then he went into the living room, poured himself a drink he didn't really want, and sat on the couch in the dark. His phone buzzed. It was an email. From Claire Patterson, contract drafts attached. Please review and respond with any questions by end of day Thursday. Ethan opened the attachments. The numbers were bigger than he'd expected. The timeline was tighter, but it was real. He set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. This was it, the break he'd been waiting for, the thing that could change everything, and all he had to do was not screw it up. The contracts were signed by the end of the week. The first phase of the project started the following Monday. Ethan moved fast. He hired 2 new developers, both hungry, both good. He leased a bigger office space in a building that didn't smell like mildew. He set up a project management system that wouldn't collapse under the weight of what they were about to take on. Marcus handled the logistics. Derek handled the code. Ethan handled everything else. It was exhausting. It was also working. 3 weeks in, they hit their first milestone, a full audit of Hale Industries' current infrastructure, complete with a breakdown of inefficiencies and recommended fixes. Ethan delivered the report himself, meeting with Victoria and her senior tech team in the same conference room where they'd first talked terms. Victoria read through the entire document in silence. When she finished, she looked up. This is thorough, she said. That's the idea. And you're confident in these recommendations? Completely. She nodded. Then proceed. It wasn't praise, but it wasn't criticism either. Ethan took it. Over the next few weeks, he found himself at Hale Industries more often than he expected. Victoria wanted updates. She wanted walkthroughs. She wanted to see the work as it happened, not just read about it in reports. Most CEOs delegated that kind of thing. Victoria didn't. She doesn't trust easily, Claire told him one afternoon, catching him in the hallway after a meeting. If she's this involved, it means she's taking you seriously. Is that a good thing? Depends. Can you handle the scrutiny? Ethan shrugged. Guess we'll find out. Claire smiled, just barely. Guess we will. It was a Thursday when things shifted. Ethan was in the middle of a walkthrough with Victoria, showing her the new server architecture they'd built, when his phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again. You can take that, Victoria said. It's fine. It rang a third time. Ethan glanced at the screen. It was Mrs. Cho. His stomach dropped. I'm sorry, he said. I have to go. He stepped into the hallway and answered. Mrs. Cho? Ethan, I'm so sorry. Lily fell at the playground. I think she might have sprained her wrist. I'm taking her to urgent care now. I'm on my way. He hung up and turned to find Victoria standing in the doorway. Is everything okay? She asked. My daughter, she got hurt. I have to go. Victoria didn't hesitate. Go. I'll reschedule the... Ethan. Her voice was firm. Go. He went. Lily's wrist wasn't broken, just badly sprained. They wrapped it, gave her a brace, and sent her home with instructions to rest. Ethan carried her to the car, buckled her in, and drove home in silence. I'm sorry, Daddy, she said quietly. For what? For falling. He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Bug, you didn't do anything wrong. But you had to leave work. Yeah, I did. Are you mad? No. He pulled into their driveway and turned to look at her. I'm not mad. I'm just glad you're okay. She nodded, but she still looked worried. That night, after she was asleep, Ethan sat on the couch and opened his laptop. He had 3 emails from Claire, 2 from Marcus, and 1 from Victoria. He opened Victoria's first. I hope your daughter is okay. Let me know when you're ready to resume. No rush. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then he typed back, She's fine, thank you. I'll be in tomorrow. He hit send before he could second guess it. When he showed up the next morning, Victoria was already in the conference room, waiting. How is she? Victoria asked. Sprained wrist. She'll be fine. Victoria nodded. Kids are resilient. Yeah, they are. She gestured to the seat across from her. Shall we? They picked up where they'd left off. But something had changed. Ethan couldn't quite put his finger on it. The conversation was the same. The work was the same. But the way Victoria looked at him, like she was trying to figure something out, that was new. 2 months into the project, they were ahead of schedule. Ethan's team had rebuilt half the infrastructure, streamlined the server communications, and fixed a dozen security vulnerabilities that had been sitting unnoticed for years. The board was impressed. The tech team was impressed. Victoria was hard to read. You've done good work, she said during their weekly update. Thanks. Better than I expected, honestly. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You didn't think we could do it? I thought you'd try. I wasn't sure you'd succeed. And now? She smiled, small, controlled. Now I'm considering expanding the contract. The expansion came through 2 weeks later. Hale Industries wanted Ethan's team to handle not just the infrastructure, but the entire digital ecosystem, cloud migration, cybersecurity, even app development. It was massive. It was also terrifying. We can do this, Marcus said when Ethan told him. Can we? We've done everything else. Why not this? Ethan didn't have a good answer, so he said yes. That's when the late nights started. Ethan was at the office until midnight most days, then home just long enough to sleep and wake up to do it again. Lily started asking why he was always tired. Mrs. Cho started asking if he was okay. He wasn't sure, but he couldn't stop. One night, around 11, he was alone in the office when his phone buzzed. It was Victoria. Still working? He frowned and typed back. Yeah. You? Always. A pause, then, you should go home. I will. Soon. Ethan. He stared at the screen. Then his phone rang. He answered. Hello? Go home. Victoria's voice was calm but firm. The work will still be here tomorrow. I know, you have a daughter. She needs you more than this project does. Ethan didn't know what to say. Ethan? Yeah, you're right. I know I am. Now go. She hung up. He sat there for a moment, staring at his phone. Then he packed up his laptop and went home. Lily was still awake when he got there, curled up on the couch with a blanket. You're home early, she said. Yeah, thought I'd surprise you. She grinned. Can we watch a movie? Absolutely. They watched something animated and silly, and Lily fell asleep halfway through. Ethan carried her to bed, tucked her in, and stood in the doorway for a while. Then he went back to the living room and sat in the dark, thinking about the phone call. About the way Victoria had said she needs you more than this project does. Like she understood. Like she'd been there. And for the first time since this whole thing started, Ethan wondered who Victoria Hale really was when no one was watching. He found out 3 weeks later. It was late afternoon, and he'd just finished a meeting when Claire pulled him aside. Ms. Hale would like to speak with you, she said. About the project? I don't think so. That was all she'd say. Ethan followed her to Victoria's office. Not the conference room, but her actual office, a space he'd never been in before. It was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The desk was spotless. There were no personal photos, no decorations, Nothing that said someone lives here. Victoria was standing by the window when he walked in. "Close the door," she said. He did. She turned to face him. "I wanted to talk to you about something. Off the record." "Okay." She hesitated, just for a second. Then she said, "You remind me of someone." "Who?" "My father." Ethan blinked. "I'm not sure if that's a compliment or not." "It's not." She crossed her arms. "He was difficult, stubborn. He refused to compromise, even when it would have been smarter, even when it cost him." "What did it cost him?" "Everything." Her voice was flat. "He built this company from nothing, and then he lost it all because he wouldn't bend. I had to rebuild it. Alone." Ethan didn't know what to say. "I've spent my entire life making sure that never happens again," Victoria continued. "I don't take risks. I don't trust easily. I don't let people in." She paused. "And then you walked into that conference room and told me you'd choose your daughter over this deal without hesitation. And I believed you. Because it's true." "I know." She looked at him. "That's the problem." "Why is that a problem?" "Because it makes me want to trust you. And I don't trust people." Ethan held her gaze. "Maybe you should." Victoria didn't answer. For a long moment, they just stood there. Then she said, "The project's going well." "It is." "Don't let me down." "I won't." She nodded. "Good. You can go." He left, but the conversation stayed with him. And as he drove home that night, he realized something. Victoria Hale wasn't just a CEO. She was someone who'd been hurt, someone who'd learned to survive by never letting anyone close. And for some reason, she was letting him see that. He didn't know what to do with that information, but he knew it mattered. The expansion contract changed everything overnight. What had started as a manageable infrastructure project ballooned into something that consumed every waking hour. Ethan's team doubled in size within 2 weeks. Marcus spent entire days interviewing candidates, onboarding new hires, coordinating schedules that shifted by the hour. Derek was buried in code reviews, mentoring junior developers who didn't know the difference between a server and a database. And Ethan was stretched so thin he barely recognized himself in the mirror. The office that had felt spacious 3 months ago now buzzed with constant activity. Desks crammed together, whiteboards covered in diagrams and timelines. The coffee maker ran non-stop, and the trash can overflowed with energy drink cans by noon every day. Ethan arrived before 7 most mornings and left well past 9 at night, sometimes later. And Lily noticed. She didn't complain at first. 5-year-olds rarely did, not in words. But Ethan could see it in the way she went quiet when he told her he had to work late again, in the way she stopped asking him to play after dinner, in the way her drawings from school started to change, houses with only one stick figure standing in the yard, no second person beside her. Mrs. Cho noticed too. "She misses you," the older woman said one evening when Ethan came to pick Lily up. It was past 8:30. Lily had fallen asleep on Mrs. Cho's couch, her small body curled around a stuffed dinosaur. "I know," Ethan said quietly, carefully lifting Lily into his arms. "I'm not judging you. You're doing what you have to do." Mrs. Cho folded her arms, her expression gentle but firm. "But she's 5. She doesn't understand deadlines or contracts. She just knows her daddy's not there. I'll figure it out." Mrs. Cho gave him a look that said she wasn't convinced. "You always say that, because I always do." "Do you?" She walked him to the door. "Just don't wait too long, Ethan. Kids don't stay little forever." He carried Lily to the car, buckled her into her booster seat, and drove home through empty streets. She stirred once, mumbling something about dinosaurs, then went still again. When he got her into bed, she woke up just enough to whisper, "Love you, Daddy. Love you too, Bug." He stood in her doorway long after she'd fallen back asleep, his chest tight with guilt he didn't know how to fix. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Marcus. "Server migration just hit a wall. Need you to look at something ASAP." Ethan closed his eyes, typed back, "Give me 10 minutes," and went to find his laptop. It was nearly 2 in the morning when he finally closed it and crawled into bed. He was asleep before his head hit the pillow. The alarm went off at 6. The next morning, Lily didn't want to get up for school. She dragged her feet getting dressed, barely touched the cereal Ethan poured for her, and sat slumped in the back seat during the drive, staring out the window without saying a word. "You okay, Bug?" Ethan asked as he pulled into the drop-off lane. She shrugged. "Lily, I'm fine." She wasn't fine, but she climbed out of the car before he could push, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders as she trudged toward the building without looking back. Ethan sat there gripping the steering wheel, watching her disappear through the doors, and felt like the worst father in the world. His phone rang before he could process that feeling. It was Claire. "Mr. Cole," she said, her tone brisk and professional as always. "Ms. Hale would like to see you this morning. Are you available?" Ethan glanced at the clock on the dashboard. He had a team meeting in 45 minutes. "When?" "Now, if possible." "Can it wait an hour?" She said it was important. He sighed, already pulling back into traffic. "I'll be there in 20. Victoria was standing by the window in her office when he arrived, exactly where she always seemed to be when she needed to think. She didn't turn when the door opened. "Close the door," she said. Ethan did. "Sit." He sat. She finally turned to face him, and for the first time since they'd met, she looked genuinely tired. Not the controlled, composed exhaustion of someone who worked long hours. This was something deeper. Something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "I'm pulling you off the migration," she said without preamble. Ethan blinked. "What?" "You heard me." "Why?" "Because you're running yourself into the ground, and it's starting to show in the work." She crossed her arms, leaning back against the window frame. "You missed 2 deadlines last week. Small ones, but still. Your team covered for you, but they won't be able to keep doing that." "I'm handling it. Are you?" She raised an eyebrow. "You look like you haven't slept in a month. When's the last time you had a real meal? When's the last time you left the office before midnight?" "I'm fine." "You're not." Her voice was firm but not unkind. "And more importantly, you're not being fair to your daughter." That hit harder than it should have. Ethan's jaw tightened. "That's not your concern. It is if it affects the quality of your work. And it is if I care." She said it simply, like it was a fact, and for a moment something flickered across her face. Uncertainty, maybe, or vulnerability, before her expression smoothed back into its usual calm. "I told you once that your daughter needs you more than this project does," Victoria continued. "I meant it, and I'm not going to stand by and watch you destroy yourself trying to prove something that doesn't need proving. I'm not trying to prove anything." "Aren't you?" She walked over to her desk and picked up a folder. "Marcus can handle the migration. He's more than capable. You'll focus on the security overhaul, smaller scope, fewer variables, less time sensitive. You'll still be involved in everything, but you won't be drowning. I don't need you to protect me from my own work. I'm not protecting you. I'm protecting my investment." She met his eyes. "And for what it's worth, I think you're a good father, Ethan. But being a good father means being present, not just physically there when you're too exhausted to function." Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she was wrong, that he had it under control, that he could handle the pressure. But he couldn't, because she was right. "Fine," he said finally, the word coming out rougher than he intended. Victoria nodded. "Claire will send you the updated assignments by end of day." He stood to leave, his hand already on the door handle, when he paused. "Why do you care?" The question hung in the air between them. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then, so softly he almost didn't hear it, she said, "Because I know what it's like to lose someone because you were too busy to notice they needed you." Ethan wanted to ask who. Wanted to know what had happened, what loss had carved that kind of hollowness into her voice. But he didn't. Some wounds weren't meant to be prodded. "Thank you," he said instead. She nodded once, already turning back to the window. The reassignment helped more than Ethan wanted to admit. The security overhaul was complex, but it was manageable, focused. He could think clearly again, could breathe without feeling like he was constantly sprinting toward a finish line that kept moving. Over the next few weeks, he started getting home before Lily's bedtime. Started having dinner with her at the table instead of eating takeout in front of his laptop at midnight. Started reading her stories again. Started being present instead of just occupying space in the same room. Lily noticed immediately. "You're home a lot now," she said one night as he tucked her in, her voice small and hopeful. "Yeah, is that okay?" "It's really good." She smiled, the kind of smile that made his chest ache. "I like it when you're here." "Me too, Bug." She hesitated, picking at the edge of her blanket. Daddy? Yeah? Are you still sad? The question caught him completely off guard. What do you mean? You were sad before. When you were gone all the time. You didn't smile as much. She looked up at him with those wide, serious eyes that saw far too much. I don't like it when you're sad. Ethan's throat tightened. He hadn't realized she'd been watching that closely, hadn't thought she'd noticed the weight he'd been carrying. I'm not sad, he said, brushing her hair back from her forehead. I was just tired. Really, really tired. Are you still tired? A little, but I'm getting better. She nodded, satisfied with that answer. Good. Because when you're happy, I'm happy. He kissed her forehead, his eyes burning. I'll try to stay happy then. Okay. She fell asleep a few minutes later, her breathing evening out into the slow rhythm of deep sleep. Ethan sat there in the dark for a while, just watching her, thinking about all the things she understood that he'd never given her credit for. The next day, he got a text from Victoria. Dinner meeting tomorrow, 7 p.m. Bring your updated security plan. He frowned at the screen, then typed back, Can we do lunch instead? I don't like leaving Lily at night unless I have to. There was a longer pause than usual. Then, lunch works. Noon. I'll send the address. The restaurant Victoria chose wasn't what Ethan expected. It was small, tucked into a quiet side street downtown that he must have driven past 100 times without noticing. No valet stand. No marble entrance. Just a simple door with a handwritten sign and warm light spilling through the windows. Oh. Victoria was already seated when he arrived, at a corner table away from the handful of other diners. She had a glass of water in front of her and was scrolling through something on her phone. You're early, Ethan said, sliding into the seat across from her. I'm always early. She set her phone face down on the table. Did you bring the plan? He pulled a folder from his bag and slid it across to her. Everything you asked for and then some. Victoria opened it, her eyes moving quickly over the pages with that intense focus he'd come to recognize. She didn't just skim, she absorbed every detail, every footnote, every piece of data. This is good, she said after a few minutes. Just good? The corner of her mouth lifted. Very good. You've identified vulnerabilities I didn't even know we had. That's the job. It's more than that. She closed the folder and set it aside. Most contractors do exactly what they're paid to do and nothing more. You go further. You care about the work. Is that unusual? More than you'd think. The waiter appeared and they ordered something light for both of them. Neither seemed particularly interested in the food. When the waiter left, Victoria leaned back in her chair, studying him. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you really start your company? Ethan wasn't expecting the question. Why does anyone start a company? Wanted to build something of my own. That's a non-answer. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I worked for someone else for 5 years. Good job, decent pay, benefits. But when Lily was born, everything shifted. Her mom left 6 months later, just walked out one day and never came back. Said she couldn't handle it, couldn't be what we needed. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes softened. I needed flexibility, Ethan continued. Needed to be able to pick Lily up from daycare when she got sick, to be there for her in ways a 9-to-5 wouldn't allow. So I quit and started my own thing. It was a risk. Terrifying, honestly, but staying would have been worse. That takes courage. Or desperation. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then, carefully, she said, I understand that more than you know. Do you? My father used to say that the only thing worse than failing is succeeding at something that doesn't matter. She picked up her water glass but didn't drink from it. He was right about that, at least. Sounds like a complicated man. He was. She set the glass down. He built Hale Industries from absolutely nothing. No investors, no connections, just work. Every day, all day, for 20 years. And when I was 16, he lost it all in a deal that went bad. Bankruptcy, foreclosure, everything gone. Ethan didn't interrupt. He had a heart attack 2 weeks later, Victoria continued, her voice flat and controlled in a way that suggested years of practice. Died in the hospital. I was there when it happened. I'm sorry. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. She met his eyes. I'm telling you because I rebuilt what he lost. Took me 7 years, but I did it, and I swore I would never let it fall apart again. That's why I don't take risks. That's why I don't trust easily, because I've seen what happens when you do. But you took a risk on me. I did. She tilted her head slightly. I'm still not entirely sure why. Maybe you saw something worth trusting. Or maybe you reminded me that not everyone's just trying to take something from you. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. Victoria picked up her fork, signaling a shift in conversation. How's your daughter doing? Better, now that I'm around more. You made the right call, pulling back. You made it for me. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe, he smiled, or maybe I needed someone to tell me it was okay to step back. You don't strike me as someone who needs permission for anything. I don't, but sometimes it helps to hear it from someone who gets it. Victoria studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she said, You're different from most people I work with. Good different or bad different? I haven't decided yet. He laughed and she almost smiled. They finished lunch talking about the project, about timelines and technical challenges, but also about other things, small things. Lily's current obsession with learning to read, Victoria's frustration with a board member who questioned every decision she made, the weather, the terrible coffee in her office building. It was easy, natural. And when they walked out together, Victoria paused on the sidewalk. Same time next week? She asked. For what? Progress update. Unless you prefer email. No, this is good. Good. She hesitated just for a second. And Ethan? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For not lying to me. About anything. He didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. And as he walked back to his car, he found himself thinking about the way she'd looked when she said it, like honesty was something rare in her world, something precious. Like it mattered. The weekly lunches became routine. Every Tuesday at noon, same restaurant, same corner table. They talked about work, about challenges and solutions and next steps. But they also talked about life. About Lily's adventures at school, about Victoria's battles with her board, about books they'd read and shows they'd watched, and places they wished they could travel to someday. Ethan had never had a professional relationship like this. Most clients kept their distance, maintained boundaries. Victoria didn't seem interested in boundaries. And the more time he spent with her, the more he realized how different she was from the person everyone else saw. She wasn't cold. She was careful. She wasn't ruthless. She was protective. And underneath all that armor, she was lonely. 2 months into their Tuesday lunches, Victoria showed up looking off. Not disheveled, she was still perfectly put together, but there was something in her eyes that wasn't usually there. Something tight and strained. You okay? Ethan asked as she sat down. Fine. You're a terrible liar. She gave him a sharp look, then sighed. Board meeting this morning, they're pushing for a merger again. With who? Doesn't matter, I'm not doing it. Why not? Because it's not what my father would have wanted. Ethan set down his menu. Your father's been gone for over a decade. I'm aware. So why does what he would have wanted still dictate what you do? Victoria's jaw tightened. Because this company is his legacy. No, Ethan said quietly. It's yours. You rebuilt it from nothing. You made it what it is today. That's not his legacy. That's yours. She stared at him, something shifting behind her eyes. The board's not necessarily wrong to suggest a merger, Ethan continued. Sometimes they make sense, but if you're going to say no, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. And what are the right reasons? The ones that are actually yours, not his, not the board's, yours. Victoria was silent for a long time. Then, so quietly he almost missed it, she said, You're very direct. You don't seem like someone who appreciates being handled with kid gloves. I don't. She picked up her water glass. But most people are too afraid to be honest with me. I'm not most people. No. She almost smiled. You're definitely not. They ate in silence after that, but it wasn't uncomfortable. If anything, it felt easier than usual, like something had settled between them. When they finished, Victoria said, I turned down the merger. Yeah? Right after the meeting, told them it wasn't happening. How'd they take it? About as well as you'd expect. She shrugged. But it's done. Do you think you made the right call? I think I made my call. That's what matters. Ethan nodded. Good. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not telling me what to do, for trusting that I can figure it out. I wouldn't dream of telling Victoria Hale what to do." She actually smiled at that, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes and made her look younger, lighter. And for just a second, Ethan saw what she might look like if the weight of the world wasn't constantly pressing down on her shoulders. It was a good look. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan sat on his couch with a beer he wasn't drinking and tried to figure out what the hell was happening. He liked Victoria, that much was obvious. But it wasn't just professional respect or admiration for her business acumen, it was something else. Something that made him look forward to Tuesday lunches more than he probably should. Something that made him notice the way she tilted her head when she was thinking, or the way her voice softened when she talked about something she actually cared about, or the way she'd looked at him when he'd challenged her about the merger. It was dangerous territory. Because Victoria Hale wasn't just his client, she was his biggest client, the one keeping his company afloat. Getting involved with her, in any capacity beyond professional, would be monumentally stupid. So he did what he always did when things got complicated. He shoved the feelings down and focused on work. But 2 weeks later, everything changed. It was a Thursday afternoon. Ethan was at the office, in the middle of a conference call with his team, when his phone started buzzing insistently on the desk. He ignored it. It buzzed again and again. He glanced at the screen. Mrs. Cho. His stomach dropped. He muted his mic. "I have to take this. Marcus, can you—" "Go," Marcus said, already pulling up the presentation on his own screen. Ethan stepped into the hallway and answered. "Mrs. Cho?" "Ethan." Her voice was tight with worry. "The school just called. Lily's sick, fever, vomiting. They need you to pick her up right away." "How bad?" "They said it came on fast. She was fine an hour ago, and now she can barely stand." "I'm on my way." He was out the door before he'd even hung up. The drive to Lily's school took 12 minutes. 12 minutes of his mind racing through worst-case scenarios, of his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. When he got there, Lily was in the nurse's office, curled up on a cot with a blanket pulled up to her chin. Her face was pale, her eyes glassy and unfocused. "Hey, Bug," Ethan said, kneeling beside her and pressing his hand to her forehead. She was burning up. "Daddy?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I don't feel good." "I know, sweetheart. We're going to get you to the doctor, okay?" She nodded weakly. He signed her out, carried her to the car. She felt so small in his arms, so fragile, and drove straight to the pediatrician's office. By the time they arrived, her fever had climbed even higher. The doctor ran tests, blood work, throat swab, temperature check. Said it was probably just a virus, but a bad one. Told Ethan to keep her hydrated, monitor her temperature closely, and bring her to the emergency room if it spiked above 104. Ethan took her home and didn't leave her side. By nightfall, her fever was at 103.5. She was delirious, mumbling about dinosaurs and school and things that didn't make any sense. Ethan sat beside her bed with a cool cloth, wiping her forehead, watching the clock, calling the doctor's office every hour for updates. They told him to give it time, to wait and see, to bring her to the ER if it got worse. He stayed awake all night, watching her breathe, terrified every time she shifted or made a sound. At some point, his phone buzzed. He'd forgotten he even had it on him. It was Victoria. "Missed our check-in call today. Everything okay?" He stared at the text for a moment, then typed back with one hand, his other still holding Lily's. "Lily's sick, high fever. Might need to take her to the hospital." The response came almost immediately. "Do you need anything?" He didn't know how to answer that. What could she possibly do? "No." "But thank you. Let me know if that changes. And Ethan, she's going to be okay." He wanted to believe that. "I hope you're right." He set the phone down and went back to watching Lily, praying that Victoria was right, that his daughter would be okay, that this would pass like the doctor said it would. The fever finally broke around 2 in the morning. Ethan checked the thermometer 3 times to make sure he wasn't imagining it. 99.2, still elevated but dropping. He sagged against the wall, his hand shaking with relief so intense it almost hurt. Lily stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Daddy?" "Right here, Bug." "I'm thirsty." He nearly cried. "I'll get you some water." He brought her water, helped her drink, watched as color slowly started returning to her face. She fell back asleep a few minutes later, her breathing steady and even. Ethan stayed in the chair beside her bed for the rest of the night, too wired to sleep, too grateful to do anything but watch her, and thank whatever forces in the universe had brought her through this. When morning came and Lily was still stable, he finally let himself believe she was going to be okay. His phone buzzed. Victoria again. How is she? Better. Fever broke a few hours ago. Thank God. Take the day? Take the week if you need to. I'll be fine to work tomorrow. Ethan. He smiled despite his exhaustion. Okay. I'll take today. Smart man. He set the phone down and went to check on Lily again. She was awake, looking at him with those big, tired eyes. Hi, Daddy. Hi, Bug. How are you feeling? Better? Can I have more water? You can have anything you want. And for the first time in hours, Ethan felt like everything was going to be okay. Lily recovered slowly over the next few days. The fever stayed down, but she was weak and exhausted, sleeping more than usual and picking at her food. Ethan worked from his laptop on the couch, answering emails and joining video calls while she dozed beside him under her dinosaur blanket, her small body curled into his side. Marcus handled everything at the office without complaint. Derek managed the technical calls. The team adapted. And for once, Ethan didn't fight it, didn't try to be in two places at once, didn't push himself past the breaking point. Victoria checked in every day. Not through Claire, directly. Short messages that never felt intrusive. How's she doing today? And does she need anything? And once, simply, thinking of you both. It was strange. Ethan had worked with dozens of clients over the years, and not one of them had ever asked about his personal life beyond polite small talk. But Victoria wasn't like other clients. He was starting to realize she wasn't like anyone else, period. By the end of the week, Lily was well enough to complain about being bored, which Ethan took as a very good sign. He set her up with coloring books and cartoons, made her the chicken noodle soup she actually liked, and let her stay up past bedtime because he was too relieved to care about routines. On Saturday morning, his phone rang. Victoria. He answered. Hey, how is she? Almost back to normal, eating again, driving me crazy, asking to go to the park. That's wonderful. There was genuine warmth in her voice. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you have plans tomorrow, Sunday? Ethan frowned, glancing at Lily, who was arranging her dinosaur figurines in some elaborate formation on the coffee table. Nothing concrete. Why? I'd like to stop by. Bring Lily something, if that's okay with you. Victoria, you don't have to do that. I know, but I want to. Really, you don't? Is it okay or not? He smiled despite himself. Yeah, it's okay. Good. Text me your address. I'll be there around 11. She hung up before he could ask what she was bringing. The next morning, Ethan spent an embarrassing amount of time cleaning the apartment. It wasn't messy. He kept things relatively tidy out of necessity. But having Victoria Hale in his personal space felt different than meeting her in restaurants or conference rooms. This was his life, unfiltered and unpolished. The scuffed furniture, the crayon marks on the wall that he kept meaning to scrub off, the stack of bills on the kitchen counter. Lily noticed his sudden burst of tidying energy. Why are you cleaning so much? She asked from her spot on the couch, watching him wipe down the kitchen counter for the third time. Because someone's coming over. Who? A friend from work. Marcus? No. Derek? No. She tilted her head, curious. Then who? Her name is Victoria. Lily's eyes went wide. A girl? A woman, yeah. Is she your girlfriend? Ethan nearly dropped the dish rag. No, she's just a friend. Okay. Lily didn't look convinced. But you're acting weird. I'm not acting weird. You cleaned the bathroom twice. That's just called being clean. She shrugged and went back to lining up her dinosaurs. At exactly 11 o'clock, there was a knock on the door. Ethan opened it to find Victoria standing in the hallway, dressed more casually than he'd ever seen her. Dark jeans, a cream-colored sweater, no blazer. Her hair was down. She looked almost normal, almost like someone you might pass on the street without assuming she ran a multi-million-dollar company. In her hands was a gift bag with tissue paper poking out the top. Hi, she said. Hi, come in. Victoria stepped inside, her eyes moving around the small apartment with an expression Ethan couldn't quite read. It wasn't judgment, more like curiosity, like she was trying to understand something. It's not much, Ethan said, suddenly self-conscious. It's wonderful. Victoria turned to look at him. It feels like a home, a real one. Before he could respond, Lily appeared in the doorway to the living room, clutching her favorite stuffed T-Rex and looking shy in a way she rarely did. Hi, Lily said quietly. Victoria crouched down to her level, a movement so natural and unthinking that it caught Ethan completely off guard. Hi, you must be Lily. Lily nodded. I'm Victoria. Your dad's told me a lot about you. He has? He has. He says you're really smart and really brave. Lily's face lit up. I am brave. I got a shot last month and I didn't even cry. That's very brave. I hate shots. Victoria held out the gift bag. I brought you something for being so brave when you were sick. Lily took the bag carefully, like it might break, and peeked inside. Her eyes went impossibly wide. Dinosaurs! She pulled out a set of beautifully detailed dinosaur figurines, museum quality, not the cheap plastic ones from the toy store. T-Rex, Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Brachiosaurus, and several others Ethan didn't immediately recognize. These are amazing, Lily breathed, turning each one over in her hands with reverence. I'm glad you like them. Victoria stood, brushing off her knees and glancing at Ethan. I wasn't sure what kind she was into, but Marcus mentioned she loves dinosaurs. You asked Marcus about my daughter's interests? I wanted to get it right. Lily was already on the floor, arranging the new dinosaurs alongside her old ones, creating what appeared to be some kind of prehistoric battle scene. Thank you, Miss Victoria, she called without looking up. You're very welcome. Ethan gestured toward the kitchen. Coffee? Please. They left Lily playing and moved to the small kitchen table. Ethan poured 2 cups, black for both of them, and sat down across from her. You really didn't have to do this, he said. I wanted to. Victoria wrapped her hands around the mug, not drinking yet. She's important to you. That makes her important to me. The words hung in the air between them. Ethan didn't know what to say, so he took a sip of coffee and tried to process the fact that Victoria Hale was sitting in his kitchen, drinking mediocre coffee from a mug with a chipped handle and looking completely at ease. Can I ask you something? Victoria said after a moment. Sure. Why don't you have anyone else? A partner, I mean. Someone to help with all of this. Ethan set down his mug. It's complicated. Most things worth talking about are. He was quiet for a moment, debating how much to say. Then he decided honesty was easier than deflection. Lily's mom walked out when things got hard. Just left one day and never looked back. I can't risk letting someone into our lives who might do that again. Victoria nodded slowly. I understand that. Do you? More than you know. She looked down at her coffee. I've spent most of my life keeping people at a distance because it's safer that way. But it's also incredibly lonely. Yeah, it is. They sat in silence for a moment, the only sound the distant chatter of Lily playing with her dinosaurs in the other room. You're a good father, Ethan, Victoria said quietly. I'm trying. That's more than a lot of people do. From the living room, Lily's voice rang out. Daddy, can Miss Victoria play dinosaurs with me? Ethan glanced at Victoria, who raised an eyebrow. You don't have to, he said. I want to. She stood and walked into the living room. Ethan followed, leaning against the doorway, as Victoria sat cross-legged on the floor beside Lily, who immediately began explaining the intricate rules of her dinosaur world. Okay, so this one is the Mama T-Rex, Lily said seriously, holding up the largest figure. And she's looking for food for her babies. But the Stegosaurus, that's this one. He's nice, but he's really scared of everything. I see, Victoria said, equally serious. And what about this one? That's the Brachiosaurus. She eats plants and she's the tallest, so she can see danger coming from really far away. Smart. They played for 20 minutes, Victoria asking questions and following Lily's elaborate storyline without once looking bored or checking her phone. She was fully present, fully engaged, and Lily was eating it up. Then Victoria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, and silenced it. It buzzed again. You can take that, Ethan said from the doorway. It's not important. Victoria. She sighed and stood. Let me just check. I'm sorry. She stepped into the hallway, and Ethan could hear her voice through the door, low, clipped, barely controlled irritation bleeding through. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone was crystal clear. When she came back 2 minutes later, her expression was tight, all the warmth from before carefully locked away behind her usual mask. Everything okay? Ethan asked. Fine, just work. On a Sunday? It's always work. She checked her watch. I should probably go. You don't have to. I do, but thank you for letting me visit. Lily looked up from her dinosaurs, her face falling. Do you have to leave already? I do, sweetheart, but I'll come back soon. Is that okay? Okay. Lily stood and threw her arms around Victoria's legs in an unexpected hug. Thank you for the dinosaurs. They're the best ones I ever got. Victoria's entire expression softened in a way Ethan had never seen before. She rested one hand gently on top of Lily's head. You're very welcome. Ethan walked Victoria to the door. Thank you, he said, for coming, for the gift, for all of it. You don't have to thank me. I do, though. Victoria looked at him for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then she said, I'll see you Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday. She left, and Ethan closed the door, leaning against it and trying to figure out what had just happened. Lily appeared at his elbow. I really like her, Daddy. Yeah? Yeah, she's nice, and she's really pretty. Ethan smiled. She is, isn't she? Are you sure she's not your girlfriend? I'm sure, Bug. Why not? Because it's complicated. Lily made a face. Grown-ups always say that when they don't want to explain things. That's because it's usually true. But as Ethan watched Lily return to her dinosaurs, he found himself wondering if maybe it didn't have to be quite so complicated after all. The following week felt different, lighter, somehow. Victoria's texts came more frequently, not about work, but about other things. A photo of a terrible sandwich from the cafeteria with the caption, Your lunch recommendations needed. A question about what books Lily liked. A comment about the weather that turned into a conversation about whether anyone actually enjoyed small talk or if they just pretended to. Ethan found himself looking forward to those messages more than he should. Their Tuesday lunch felt different too. Less formal, more like two people who actually wanted to be there instead of two professionals fulfilling an obligation. Lily hasn't stopped talking about the dinosaurs, Ethan said over his sandwich. Victoria smiled. I'm glad she liked them. She wants to know when you're coming back to visit. Does she? Ask me about it every day this week. Victoria's smile widened. What did you tell her? That I'd ask you. And? So I'm asking. Victoria tilted her head, her eyes bright with something Ethan couldn't quite name. Are you inviting me over, Ethan? I guess I am. Then yes, I'd like that very much. They settled on Saturday. Casual, no gifts this time, just dinner. Ethan offered to cook and Victoria didn't argue. When Saturday came, Ethan was more nervous than he wanted to admit. He made pasta. Nothing fancy, just something he knew Lily would eat and that wouldn't completely embarrass him in front of someone who probably had personal chefs on speed dial. Victoria arrived at 6 with a bottle of wine. For you, she said, handing it to him. Not the kid. Ethan laughed. Appreciate the clarification. Lily came running the second she heard Victoria's voice, nearly crashing into her legs. You came back! I did. I promised, didn't I? And you keep your promises. Always. They ate at the small kitchen table, Lily dominating the conversation with stories about school and her best friend Emma and a boy named Kevin who apparently ate paste during art class. That's disgusting, Victoria said with complete seriousness. I know, Lily said, delighted to find someone who agreed. I told the teacher, but she said some kids just do weird things. Well, she's not wrong about that. After dinner, Lily insisted on showing Victoria her room. The dinosaur posters, the bookshelf Ethan had built, the art projects covering every available surface. Ethan stayed in the kitchen cleaning up, listening to their voices drift down the hallway, to Lily's excited chatter and Victoria's patient responses. When they came back, Lily was yawning. Bedtime, Ethan said, but Miss Victoria's here. And she'll still be here in the morning. Victoria crouched down. Your dad's right, but I promise I'll visit again very soon. Deal? Deal. Ethan got Lily ready for bed, read her the dragon story she never got tired of, and tucked her in. When he came back to the living room, Victoria was standing by the window, looking out at the city lights scattered across the darkness. "She's wonderful," Victoria said without turning around. "Yeah, she really is. You're lucky." "I know." Victoria turned to face him, and her expression was different, vulnerable in a way he'd never seen. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "I didn't think I wanted this." She gestured vaguely around the apartment. "Any of this. Connection. Family. The messy, complicated parts of caring about people. I convinced myself I didn't need it, that it was a weakness I couldn't afford. And now? Now I'm not so sure." She crossed her arms, not defensively, but like she was holding herself together. "You and Lily, you've made me realize I've been living half a life, building things that don't really matter while ignoring the things that do. And I don't want to do that anymore." Ethan took a step closer. "Victoria, I'm not asking for anything," she said quickly. "I just needed you to know that you matter to me, both of you, more than I expected. You matter to us too." They stood there in the dim light, the space between them charged with something neither seemed ready to name. Then Victoria's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. It buzzed again. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and her entire expression went cold. "I have to take this." "Okay." She stepped into the hallway, but this time Ethan could hear every word. "I told you I'm not interested, Richard. No, I don't care what the board thinks, because it's my company and I make the final decisions. I'm hanging up now." She came back in, her jaw tight, her shoulders rigid. "What happened?" Ethan asked. "The board is pushing back on a decision I made last week, threatening to call an emergency vote to override me." "Can they do that?" "Technically, yes, but they won't win." She grabbed her coat from the back of the chair. "I'm sorry, I have to go deal with this." "What can I do?" She paused, looking at him like she was considering actually accepting help for once. "Nothing. This is something I have to handle myself." "You don't, though." "Ethan, you just told me you're tired of living half a life. That includes letting people in when things get hard, not just when they're easy." Victoria stared at him, something cracking in her carefully maintained composure. "I don't know how to do that." "Start small. Tell me what's actually going on." She hesitated for so long he thought she might leave anyway. Then, slowly, she sat back down on the couch. "The merger I turned down 3 months ago," she said. "The board has been quietly working behind the scenes to revive it. They're convinced it's the right move financially, and they're saying I'm being stubborn and letting personal feelings cloud my judgment." "Are you?" "Maybe. I don't know anymore." She ran a hand through her hair, the gesture uncharacteristically messy. "All I know is that if I agree to this merger, I lose control of the company. And if I lose control, I lose everything my father built." "Your father died years ago, Victoria. This isn't his company anymore. It's yours." "That's what you said before. And I meant it." Ethan sat down beside her. "But you're not protecting his legacy by refusing to evolve. You're protecting yourself from the possibility of being wrong. And that's not the same thing." Her eyes flashed. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" "You're terrified of making a mistake, of letting someone down. So you stay rigid, stay in control, stay alone, even when it hurts. That's not fair. Isn't it?" Victoria stood abruptly. "I should go." "Victoria, thank you for dinner. Tell Lily I'm sorry I had to leave." She was at the door before Ethan could stop her, before he could take back the words he probably shouldn't have said. The door closed behind her with a quiet click. Ethan sat there alone, staring at the space where she'd been, feeling like he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. The next few days were silent. No texts, no calls. Their Tuesday lunch came and went without a word from her, without even a message from Claire saying Victoria had to cancel. Marcus noticed Ethan checking his phone constantly. "You okay, man?" he asked on Wednesday afternoon. "Fine. You've looked at your phone like 40 times in the last hour." "I'm fine." Marcus didn't push, but his expression said he knew better. By Friday, Ethan was convinced he'd completely destroyed whatever had been building between them. Not just the professional relationship, though losing Hale Industries as a client would be catastrophic, but the other thing, the thing he'd been trying not to name. Then, late Friday afternoon, his phone rang. Victoria. He answered on the second ring. Hello? I'm sorry. Her voice was quiet. For walking out like that. You deserve better. You don't have to apologize. Yes, I do. You were right about all of it. She took a breath. I've been so focused on protecting what I have that I forgot to actually live, and I'm tired of that. Victoria, I approve the merger. Ethan sat up straighter. You what? I called an emergency board meeting this morning. Told them I'd agree to their terms, with modifications, but I'd agree. We're moving forward. That's huge. It is. And I'm terrified. Her voice cracked slightly. But you were right. I can't keep doing this alone. I can't keep making decisions based on fear. You're not alone. I know. She was quiet for a moment. Can I see you? When? Now. If you're free. Ethan looked at the clock. It was almost 5. Lily would be with Mrs. Cho for another hour. I'm at the office. Do you want to come here? I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up before he could respond. Ethan told Marcus he was cutting out early, grabbed his jacket, and waited. Victoria showed up exactly 20 minutes later, walking through the office door like she owned the building. Marcus's eyes went wide, but she walked right past him without a word and straight into Ethan's office. She closed the door behind her. Hey, Ethan said, standing. Hey. They looked at each other across the small space. Then Victoria crossed the room in 3 steps and kissed him. It wasn't hesitant. It wasn't uncertain. It was weeks of tension and unspoken feelings compressed into one moment, and it took Ethan's breath away. When she pulled back, they were both breathing hard. I needed to do that, Victoria said. I'm not complaining. Good. She stepped back slightly, trying to compose herself, but not quite managing it. I meant what I said, about not wanting to do this alone anymore. What are you asking for? I don't know exactly. I just know I don't want to lose whatever this is between us, whatever it's becoming. Ethan reached for her hand. You won't. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise I'll try, and we'll figure it out as we go. Victoria looked down at their joined hands, her thumb brushing across his knuckles. This is a terrible idea. Probably. You're technically still my contractor. Contract's up in 2 weeks. Still, he agreed. They stood there, neither letting go. I need to tell Lily, Ethan said. I know. She's going to be thrilled. She already thinks you're my girlfriend. Victoria laughed, the sound lighter than he'd ever heard from her. Smart kid. She really is. Victoria's expression turned serious again. I've never done this before. I don't know how to be in a relationship. I'm going to mess it up. So am I. That's not reassuring. Then we'll mess it up together and figure it out as we go. Is it always this terrifying? I think the good things usually are. Victoria squeezed his hand. Then I guess we're doing this. Yeah, Ethan said, smiling. I guess we are. And for the first time in a very long time, he felt like maybe everything was going to work out exactly the way it was supposed to. The first few weeks were better than Ethan had any right to expect. They were careful at first, keeping things private while they figured out what this actually was. Victoria still came over on Saturdays. They still had lunch on Tuesdays. But now there were other moments too, her hand finding his under the table when they thought no one was looking, late-night phone calls after Lily was asleep, stolen kisses in his office after everyone else had gone home. It felt fragile, new, like something that could break if they weren't careful. Lily noticed almost immediately. You're different now, she said one morning over breakfast, studying Ethan with those 2 observant eyes. Different how? You smile more, and you check your phone a lot. I do not. You do. You just did it like 3 times while I was eating my cereal. Ethan set his phone face down on the table. Okay, maybe a little. Is it because of Miss Victoria? He should have known she'd figure it out. What makes you think that? Because you smile different when she texts you, like this. Lily made an exaggerated, goofy face. I do not look like that. You kind of do, Daddy. Ethan sighed. Okay, yes. Victoria and we're dating. Lily's entire face lit up. Really? Like boyfriend and girlfriend? Something like that. Does that mean she's going to be my new mom? The question hit him like a truck. Whoa, hold on, it doesn't work like that, Bug. Why not? Because it's more complicated than that. We're still figuring things out. Lily frowned, clearly unsatisfied with that answer. Grown-ups always say things are complicated. That's because they usually are. I still like her. A lot. I'm glad. Because I like her too. Lily went back to her cereal, apparently satisfied for now. But Ethan sat there thinking about what she'd said, about the future, about what happened if this actually worked long term. He wasn't ready to think about that yet. One step at a time. The first real problem started small, the way problems usually do. It was a Tuesday afternoon about a month after they'd made things official, or as official as two people could be when they were still keeping it mostly quiet. Victoria was late to lunch, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the look on her face when she finally arrived. She looked exhausted. More than that, defeated. "What happened?" Ethan asked as she sat down. "The merger's falling apart." "What? I thought everything was moving forward." "It was. Until this morning." Victoria rubbed her temples like she was trying to ward off a headache. "The other company's backing out. They're saying our terms are too aggressive, that we're asking for too much control." "Did you see this coming?" "I knew it was a possibility, but I thought we had more leverage than we apparently do." She looked up at him, and there was something raw in her expression. "The board is furious. They're blaming me for pushing too hard, for not compromising when I should have." "What happens now?" "Now I try to salvage it. I have a meeting with their executives tomorrow morning, last-ditch effort to find middle ground." "And if you can't?" "Then the board was right, and I was wrong. And I'll never hear the end of it." Her voice was flat, resigned. "This could be really bad, Ethan." He reached across the table and took her hand. "You'll figure it out. You always do." "You don't know that." "I know you. You don't give up on things that matter." She squeezed his hand but didn't look convinced. They barely touched their food. Victoria's phone kept buzzing with messages she kept ignoring, and by the time they left, Ethan could see the weight settling heavier on her shoulders. "Call me after the meeting tomorrow," he said. "I will." But she didn't. The meeting went worse than bad. Victoria texted him afterward, just 2 words: complete disaster. He tried calling. She didn't answer. He tried again an hour later, straight to voicemail. By the time she finally called him back, it was almost 11 at night, and her voice sounded hollow, scraped clean of everything. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have called sooner." "It's okay." "Are you okay?" "No." "Where are you?" "My office. Where else would I be?" "Have you eaten anything?" "I'm not hungry." Victoria. "Ethan, I can't do this right now." "Do what?" "Pretend everything's fine when it's not. I screwed up. I made a decision based on pride and ego, and now my company is paying for it." "That's not what happened." "Isn't it? You were the one who told me I was being stubborn, that I was protecting myself instead of doing what was right for the company." "I didn't say—" "You did, and you were right. But I went ahead and did it anyway because I thought I knew better." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out I didn't." "This isn't your fault, Victoria." "Then whose fault is it?" Ethan didn't have an answer for that. "I have to go," she said. "I'll talk to you later." She hung up before he could say anything else. The next day she didn't call, or the day after that. Ethan texted. No response. He tried calling. Voicemail. By the end of the week, he was genuinely worried, not just about their relationship, but about her. Finally, on Friday afternoon, Claire called him. "Mr. Cole?" she said, her professional mask firmly in place. "Ms. Hale asked me to reach out regarding the final deliverables on your contract." "Where is she, Claire?" "She's unavailable at the moment." "For a week?" "Come on." There was a pause, then quieter, dropping the professional tone. "She's not doing well. The board called an emergency meeting yesterday. They're questioning her leadership, formally." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Can they remove her?" "If they get enough votes, yes, the meeting's on Monday." "I need to talk to her." "I don't think she wants to see anyone right now, Mr. Cole." "I don't care. Where is she?" Another pause. "She's at her apartment, but I'm telling you, she specifically said—" "Thanks, Claire." He hung up and grabbed his keys. Victoria's building was the kind of place that made Ethan's apartment look like a closet. Marble lobby, doorman in an actual uniform, the faint smell of expensive everything. The doorman looked at him like he'd walked in off the street, which, technically, he had. "I'm here to see Victoria Hale," Ethan said. "Is she expecting you?" "No." The doorman's expression didn't change. "Then I'm afraid I can't let you up." "Can you at least call her? Tell her Ethan's here." The doorman sighed but picked up the phone. He spoke quietly into it, listened for a moment, then hung up and looked at Ethan with something like surprise. 32nd floor, apartment 3205. Thanks. The elevator ride felt endless. When he finally reached her door, he knocked twice. No answer. He knocked again. "Victoria, I know you're in there." The door opened. Victoria looked worse than he'd ever seen her. Hair pulled back in a messy knot, no makeup, wearing sweatpants and an oversized shirt that looked like it might have been her father's. She looked small, breakable. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "Too bad." "I am." "Ethan, are you going to let me in, or are we having this conversation in the hallway?" She stepped aside. The apartment was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the entire city, furniture that probably cost more than his car, art on the walls that belonged in museums. But it felt cold, empty, like a showroom instead of a home. "Nice place," Ethan said. "Thanks." "You look terrible." "I feel terrible." He crossed the room to where she stood by the window. "Talk to me. There's nothing to talk about." "That's not true, and you know it." "Ethan, I appreciate you coming here, I really do, but I don't need a pep talk right now." "Good, because that's not why I'm here." "Then why are you here?" "Because you shut me out, and that's not okay." Victoria turned to face him, and there was fire in her eyes despite the exhaustion. "I shut you out because I didn't want you to see this. I didn't want you to see me fail." "You haven't failed, haven't I?" Her voice rose. "The merger's dead. The board is calling for my removal. My company, the one I spent 15 years rebuilding from nothing, is about to be taken away from me. So yeah, I'd say that's failure. The vote hasn't happened yet. Doesn't matter. I've lost their trust, and once you lose that, you don't get it back. Then fight for it." "I'm tired of fighting, Ethan." She sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "I'm so tired. Of pretending I have all the answers, of being strong all the time, of carrying all of this by myself." He sat beside her. "Then stop carrying it by yourself." "I don't know how." "Start by letting me help." She looked up at him, her eyes red-rimmed. "You can't help with this. This is my mess." "Maybe. But I can be here. That has to count for something." Victoria didn't answer, but after a moment she leaned against him, her head on his shoulder, and for a while they just sat there in silence. Finally she said, "I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of losing everything. Again." "You won't." "You can't promise that." "No, but I can promise I'm not going anywhere, no matter what happens." She pulled back to look at him. "Even if this all falls apart? Even if I lose the company? Even then." "Why?" "Because I care about you. Not because you're successful or powerful or run a company. I care about you because of who you are when all that's stripped away." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I don't even know who that is anymore." "Then we'll figure it out together." She kissed him then, and it felt different from before, desperate, like she was holding on to the only solid thing in a world that was crumbling around her. When they pulled apart, she said, "I don't deserve you. That's not your call to make." She almost smiled. "You're infuriating. You know that?" "I've been told." They stayed at her apartment for the rest of the night. Ethan ordered food that Victoria barely touched. They talked about the board meeting, about her options, about what happened if the vote didn't go her way. "I could start over," she said at one point, staring out at the city lights. "Build something new from scratch." "You could." "It wouldn't be the same." "No. But it might be better." She looked at him. "You really believe that?" "I believe you're more than this company, and if the board can't see that, then they're idiots." "Careful, you're talking about some very powerful people." "I don't care." She smiled for the first time all evening. "You really don't, do you?" "Not even a little bit." The board meeting was Monday at 9 in the morning. Ethan wanted to be there. Victoria said no. "This is something I have to do alone," she told him Saturday night over the phone. "You keep saying that, because it's true." "It doesn't have to be." Ethan, you being there would only make things worse. They'd see it as proof that I'm not focused, that I'm distracted by personal matters. Are you? She was quiet for a moment. I don't know, but I need them to believe I'm not. He didn't like it, but he understood. Good luck, he said. Thank you. And Victoria? Yeah? Whatever happens, you're going to be okay. I promise you that. She didn't answer, but he could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I'll call you after, she said finally. The meeting lasted 4 hours. Ethan tried to work and failed spectacularly. He paced his office, checked his phone every 30 seconds, drove Marcus absolutely crazy with his restlessness. You're making me nervous, Marcus said finally. Sorry. Is this about Victoria? Yeah. Want to talk about it? Not really. Marcus nodded and went back to his computer, but Ethan could feel him watching. At 1:45, his phone finally rang. Victoria. He answered on the first ring. How'd it go? There was a long, terrible pause, then, so quietly he almost didn't hear it. They voted me out. The floor dropped out from under him. What? 7-5. It wasn't even close. Her voice was completely flat, emotionless. I have 2 weeks to transition out. After that, I'm done. Victoria, I'm so sorry. Me too. She took a shaky breath. I need to go. There's paperwork, exit interviews. I need to make some calls. Do you want me to come over tonight? No, I need to be alone for a while. Victoria, I'll call you in a few days. I promise. She hung up. Ethan sat there staring at his phone, feeling completely helpless. A few days turned into a week. Then 2. Ethan texted, called, left voicemails that went unanswered. Claire wouldn't tell him anything. She's asked for privacy, Mr. Cole. I'm respecting that. Marcus tried to be reassuring. Give her space. She's processing a major loss. But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Lily asked about Victoria every day. When is she coming back? She'd ask. I don't know, Bug. Is she mad at us? No, sweetheart. She's just going through something hard. Can we help her? I'm trying. But he wasn't sure how. 3 weeks after the board vote, Victoria finally called. Can we meet? She asked. No greeting, no preamble. Of course. When? Tonight, 8 o'clock, the restaurant where we used to have lunch. I'll be there. He showed up 15 minutes early. Victoria was already waiting at their usual table, a glass of water untouched in front of her. She looked different, thinner, like she hadn't been eating, tired in a way that went deeper than lack of sleep, but composed, put together. Hi, Ethan said, sitting down across from her. Hi. I've been worried about you. I know. I'm sorry. Where have you been? Thinking, processing, trying to figure out what comes next. She folded her hands on the table. I've made some decisions. Ethan's chest tightened. Okay. I'm leaving, she said. The city? Maybe the state? Maybe farther? I don't know yet. But I need to get away from all of this. Start completely fresh somewhere else. For how long? I don't know. Victoria, let me finish. She took a breath and he could see her steadying herself. I care about you. I care about Lily. More than I've cared about anyone in a very long time. But I can't do this right now. I can't be what you both need me to be. We're not asking you to be anything except yourself. Yes, you are. You're asking me to let you in, to trust you, to build something with you while my entire life is falling apart. And I can't do that. I can't be in a relationship when I don't even know who I am without the company. You don't mean that. I do. Her voice was firm, final. I thought I could handle this. Thought I could balance losing everything professionally while building something personally. But I can't. And it's not fair to drag you and Lily through my mess while I figure out how to put myself back together. So that's it? You're just walking away? I'm protecting you, both of you. We don't need protecting. Yes, you do. From me. From this. She gestured vaguely at herself. From whatever broken version of myself I'm going to be for the next however long. That's not your decision to make alone. Yes, it is. She stood, picking up her coat from the back of the chair. I'm sorry, Ethan. I really am. But this is the right thing to do. Right for who? For everyone. She turned to leave. Don't do this, Ethan said, his voice rough. Don't run away when things get hard. That's not who you are. Victoria stopped but didn't turn around. You don't know who I am? I don't even know who I am anymore. Then let me help you figure it out. I can't. She walked out. Ethan sat there alone, staring at the empty chair across from him, feeling like someone had reached into his chest and carved out everything important. The next few weeks were brutal. Lily kept asking when Victoria was coming back. At first, Ethan tried to deflect. She's busy with work stuff, Bug. Then, she had to go away for a little while. Finally, when Lily asked for what felt like the 100th time, he told her the truth. I don't know if she's coming back, sweetheart. Lily's face crumpled. Why not? Did we do something wrong? No, you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes adults they need space to figure things out. But I miss her. I know. I miss her too. Can you call her? Can you ask her to come back? It's not that simple. Why is everything always complicated with grown-ups? Ethan pulled her into a hug, and she cried against his shoulder while he tried to hold himself together. Work became his refuge. The Hale Industries contract was finished, but there were new clients now, smaller projects, but steady. Marcus kept everything running smoothly. Derek kept the code clean, and Ethan buried himself in tasks that kept his mind occupied. Mostly worked. Except at night, when the apartment was quiet and Lily was asleep, and he couldn't stop thinking about the look on Victoria's face when she'd walked away. 2 months passed, then 3. Ethan stopped checking his phone every 5 minutes, stopped hoping for a text that never came, started accepting that maybe this was really over, that Victoria had meant what she said about needing to start fresh somewhere else. He was learning to live with the hole she'd left behind. And then, one Saturday morning in late spring, there was a knock on his door. He opened it. Victoria stood in the hallway, looking nervous in a way he'd never seen before. Her hair was shorter. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater. She looked different, lighter, maybe. Hi, she said. Ethan just stared. Can I come in? She asked. He stepped aside, not trusting his voice. She walked into the apartment slowly, like she was seeing it for the first time all over again. Where's Lily? At a friend's house. Birthday party. I'm picking her up in an hour. Can we talk before then? I don't know, Victoria. Can we? She flinched. I deserve that. Yeah, you do. I'm sorry for leaving, for disappearing, for all of it. Why are you here? Because I made a mistake. She turned to face him fully. I thought I needed to do this alone, to figure out who I was without the company, without the pressure, without anyone else's expectations. So I left, traveled, spent 3 months trying to find something that felt right. And all I found was that I missed you, both of you, every single day. That's great, Victoria, really. His voice was harder than he meant it to be. But you don't get to just show up after 3 months and expect everything to be fine. I know. Do you? Because you walked away. You made that choice, and Lily asked about you every single day for weeks. Do you have any idea how hard that was? Trying to explain to a 5-year-old why someone she cared about just vanished? I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix it. I know it doesn't. Her eyes filled with tears. But I'm hoping it's a start. I'm hoping you'll give me a chance to prove I've changed. What changed? I did. I finally stopped running. Stopped being afraid of letting people in just because I might lose them. She stepped closer. I don't want to be alone anymore, Ethan. I want to be here with you, with Lily, if you'll let me try again. And when things get hard, when you lose something else or get scared or decide this is too much, what then? Then I stay anyway, and we work through it together. How do I know you won't just leave again? Because I'm not asking for easy. I'm asking for real. And real means showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. She reached for his hand. I love you. I should have said it before I left, but I'm saying it now. I love you, and I want to fight for this. For us, if you'll give me the chance. Ethan looked at her, at the vulnerability in her eyes, at the woman who'd spent her whole life building walls, finally asking permission to tear them down completely. I love you too, he said finally. But I can't do this halfway, Victoria. If you're in, you're all in. No more running when things get scary. I'm in. I promise you that. And Lily? I'll spend however long it takes making it up to her, if she'll let me. Ethan pulled her into his arms, and she held on to him like he was the only thing anchoring her to the ground. Don't leave again, he said quietly. I won't. Never again. Promise me. I promise. They stood there for a long time, just holding each other. Finally, Ethan pulled back. I need to pick up Lily in 20 minutes. Can I come with you? Yeah, I think she'd really like that. When they pulled up to the house where the party was, Lily came running out with the other kids, her face sticky with frosting and her dress covered in grass stains. She saw Victoria through the car window and froze. Then she ran straight at the car. Ethan barely had the door open before Lily launched herself at Victoria, wrapping her arms around her waist. You came back! Lily's voice was muffled against Victoria's shirt. Victoria knelt down, pulling Lily into a proper hug. I did, and I'm so sorry I was gone for so long. It's okay. Daddy said you needed space. I did, but I don't anymore. Victoria pulled back to look at Lily. Is it okay if I stay this time? Lily looked at Ethan. Is it okay, Daddy? Ethan smiled. Yeah, Bug, it's okay. Lily threw her arms around Victoria again. Then yes, please stay. Victoria's eyes filled with tears as she held Lily close. And for the first time in months, Ethan felt like maybe everything was going to be okay after all. The first month after Victoria came back was harder than any of them expected. Not because they didn't want to be together. They did, desperately. But because trust, once shattered, didn't just magically reassemble itself. It had to be rebuilt piece by piece, day by day, with patience none of them were sure they actually had. Victoria understood that better than anyone. She didn't push. She didn't make grand promises or try to fast-track her way back into their lives. She just showed up, every single day. She came over 3 times a week for dinner. She helped Lily with her homework, even though first-grade math made her irrationally frustrated. She read bedtime stories in voices that made Lily giggle. She learned the intricate rules of the ever-evolving dinosaur universe that dominated their living room floor. And slowly, carefully, Lily let her back in. Ethan was harder. Not because he didn't love her, he did more than he wanted to admit, but because he'd spent 3 months learning how to function with a hole where she used to be. He'd gotten used to the shape of that absence. And now she was back, asking him to rearrange everything again, to trust that this time would be different. You're holding back, Victoria said one night after Lily had gone to bed. They were sitting on the couch, a careful foot of space between them that hadn't been there before she left. I'm not. You are. I can feel it. Ethan stared at the TV, which wasn't even on. What do you want me to say? I want you to be honest with me. Fine. I'm scared. He turned to look at her. I'm scared that this is temporary. That the second things get hard again, you'll leave. And I can't go through that again, Victoria. I can't put Lily through it again. I won't leave. You said that before. The words hung between them, sharp and true. Victoria's face crumpled. You're right. I did. And then I broke that promise. She moved closer, closing the distance he'd maintained. But I'm not that person anymore, the one who runs when things fall apart. I spent 3 months running, and all it did was make me miserable and hurt the people I love most. How do I know you mean it this time? You don't. Not yet. She took his hand. But I'm going to prove it to you every single day for as long as it takes. Ethan wanted to believe her, wanted to let go of the fear that kept him at arm's length. Okay, he said finally, but you have to be patient with me. This is going to take time. I know, and I'm not going anywhere. 2 months in, Victoria brought up the future. They were at his apartment, their apartment really, since she'd started staying over most nights even though she still kept her own place. Lily was asleep. They were on the couch with wine, neither of them was drinking. I've been thinking about what comes next, Victoria said, professionally. Have you decided anything? I think so. I want to start something new, something smaller, something I actually care about instead of just something that makes money or proves a point. Like what? Consulting for small businesses, tech companies that can't afford the big firms but need real help. She looked at him. Places like yours was when we first met, That's a big shift from running a multi-million-dollar corporation. I know, but that life, the board meetings, the power plays, the constant fighting, I don't want it anymore. I want to build something that actually matters to me. And you want to do it here, in this city? I want to do it near you and Lily, if that's okay. Ethan set down his wine. More than okay. There's something else. She turned to face him fully. I want to be more involved in Lily's life. Not just as someone who visits, but as someone who's actually there, someone she can count on. What does that mean exactly? It means I want to move in. Eventually. When you're ready. She held up a hand before he could respond. I know it's a big step, and I know we're still rebuilding trust, but I want you to know that's where I'm headed, that I'm not playing around here. This is real for me. Ethan's chest tightened. It's real for me too. So what do you think? About me moving in? I think, he paused, choosing his words carefully. I think we should wait a little longer. Not because I don't want it, but because I want to make sure we're both ready, that Lily's ready. Victoria nodded. That's fair. I can wait. Thank you. For what? For not pushing, for understanding. She leaned against him. I'm learning that the things worth having are worth waiting for. 4 months after Victoria came back, Ethan woke up one morning and realized the fear had faded. Not disappeared. He wasn't sure it would ever completely disappear, but it had shrunk down to something manageable, something that didn't control every decision he made. Victoria had proven herself. Day after day, week after week, she'd shown up. She'd been patient when he pulled away. She'd been steady when he tested her. She'd integrated herself into their lives so completely that the apartment felt wrong on the rare night she wasn't there. I think I'm ready, he told her that night. Ready for what? For you to move in. Victoria's eyes went wide. Really? Really? If you still want to. Of course I want to. She kissed him. Are you sure? I'm sure. And I think Lily will be thrilled. He was right. When they told Lily the next morning, she literally jumped up and down. Does this mean Victoria's going to live here forever? She asked. That's the plan, Victoria said. Yes! Lily threw her arms around both of them. This is the best day ever. Victoria moved in 3 weeks later. She didn't bring much. Most of her expensive furniture went into storage because it didn't fit the space or the life they were building together. But she brought herself. Her books, her terrible coffee maker that Ethan had learned to love, her small collection of things that actually mattered to her. The first night felt strange, like playing house, except it wasn't playing. This is weird, Victoria said, standing in the middle of the living room. Good weird or bad weird? Good weird. I've never lived with anyone before, not like this. Me neither. Not since Lily's mom left. Are you nervous? A little. You? Terrified, Ethan laughed. We'll figure it out. You always say that. Because it's always true. They did figure it out, though not without some stumbling. Victoria learned that Ethan was obsessive about keeping the kitchen clean. Ethan learned that Victoria couldn't function before her second cup of coffee, and it was best not to attempt conversation before then. They argued about whose turn it was to do dishes, about whether Lily needed a jacket when it was 60 degrees outside, about 100 small things that didn't really matter. But they also learned how to apologize, how to compromise, how to choose each other even when it would be easier not to. Lily thrived. She had 2 adults who showed up for her, who helped with homework and came to school events and tucked her in at night. She had stability in a way she'd never experienced before. One evening, about 6 months after Victoria moved in, Lily asked a question that stopped both of them cold. They were at the dinner table. Ethan had made pasta. Victoria had attempted a salad that was mostly edible. Can I call you Mom? Lily asked, looking at Victoria. Victoria froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. Ethan set down his water glass very carefully. What? Victoria said softly. Can I call you Mom? Lily repeated. Emma at school has 2 moms because her parents are both girls, and I was thinking maybe I could have a mom too, since my real mom isn't here, and you are. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Ethan, who nodded. You don't have to, Victoria said, her voice shaking. I know I'm not. But you're here, Lily interrupted. And you make my lunch, and you read me stories, and you help me with my homework. That's what moms do, right? Yeah, sweetheart, that's what moms do. So can I? If you want to, I would be honored. Lily grinned. Okay. Hi, Mom. Victoria completely broke down. She covered her face with her hands and cried in a way Ethan had never seen. Not sad tears, but something deeper. Relief, maybe. Joy. The kind of crying that happened when something broken finally healed. Hi, baby, Victoria managed through her tears. Lily got up from her chair and hugged Victoria, and Ethan sat there watching them, his own eyes burning, thinking about how far they'd all come. That night, after Lily was asleep, Victoria sat on the edge of their bed, looking shell-shocked. I never thought I'd have this, she said. Have what? A family. I thought I'd missed my chance, that I'd chosen my career over everything else, and that was just how it was going to be. You didn't miss anything. You're living it now. I know, and it terrifies me. Why? Because I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to fail at this. Ethan sat beside her. You won't. You don't know that. I know you love her. I know you show up. That's enough. Victoria leaned against him. I love you too. You know that, right? Yeah, I know. Good, because I need you to know. A year passed, then another. Victoria's consulting business grew steadily. She worked with companies that reminded Ethan of his own, small, scrappy, trying to make something work with limited resources and unlimited determination. She was good at it, better than good. Ethan's company continued to expand. They moved into an even bigger office, hired more people, took on larger clients. Nothing explosive, but solid and sustainable. At home, life settled into rhythms. Lily started second grade, then third. She joined soccer and hated it, tried piano and tolerated it, discovered gymnastics and fell in love. Victoria never missed a practice or a recital, neither did Ethan. They fought sometimes. About money when expenses piled up. About schedules when everyone was overcommitted. About whether Lily was old enough for sleepovers at friends' houses. But they always came back to each other, always talked through it, always chose to stay. One Saturday afternoon, about 2.5 years after Victoria had come back, Ethan found her sitting on the couch, staring at a small velvet box. What's that? He asked. She looked up, startled. Nothing. Doesn't look like nothing. She hesitated, then handed it to him. He opened it. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, exactly what he would have picked for himself. Victoria, I know it's not traditional, she said quickly, the words tumbling out. I know the guy's supposed to ask, but I've never been traditional, and I don't want to wait anymore. She took the box back and opened it again. Ethan Cole, you gave me something I didn't think I deserved. A home, a family, a reason to stop running and start building. And I don't want to do any of this without you. She took a breath. So, will you marry me? Ethan stared at her. Then he started laughing. What? Victoria looked panicked. Why are you laughing? He pulled a small box from his pocket. He'd been carrying it around for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. Her eyes went wide. I was going to ask you next weekend, he said. Had dinner reservations and everything. You're kidding. I'm not. He opened his box. Inside was a different ring, but just as simple, just as perfect. Victoria Hale, will you marry me? She started laughing, too, tears streaming down her face. This is ridiculous. I know. We're both proposing. Apparently. So what do we do? We both say yes. She grinned through her tears. Okay, yes, yes. They kissed, both laughing, and from down the hallway came Lily's voice. Are you guys getting married? They pulled apart to find her standing there in her pajamas, grinning like she'd won the lottery. How long have you been there? Ethan asked. Long enough, so are you? Victoria crouched down. Yes, sweetheart, we are. Finally. Lily threw herself at both of them. I've been waiting forever. You knew? Ethan said. Duh! You guys are so obvious. Victoria laughed and pulled them both into a hug, and Ethan thought about all the ways life could surprise you if you let it. They got married 4 months later in a small ceremony at a park by the river. Nothing fancy, just close friends and family, simple vows, Lily as the flower girl in a dress she'd picked out herself. When it was Ethan's turn to speak, he kept it simple. I didn't think I'd ever find this, he said, looking at Victoria. Someone who saw all of me, the messy parts, the scared parts, the parts that didn't have it together, and stayed anyway. You're stubborn and complicated and the best thing that ever happened to me. I love you, and I'm not going anywhere. Victoria's voice shook when she spoke. I spent most of my life building walls, she said, protecting myself from getting hurt by never letting anyone close enough to matter. And then you walked into my life and tore those walls down without even trying. You showed me what it means to let someone in, to trust, to love without conditions. She looked at Lily. Both of you showed me that. This is my family, and I'm never letting go. There wasn't a dry eye anywhere. Afterward, at the small reception in a restaurant they'd rented out, Lily pulled Victoria aside. You look really pretty, Mom, she said. Victoria's eyes filled with tears for what felt like the 100th time that day. Thank you, baby. Are you happy? I'm so happy I can barely stand it. Good, because Daddy's happy too. I can tell. Victoria hugged her. I love you. You know that? I know. I love you too. Life after the wedding wasn't perfect. There were still hard days. Days when Victoria worked too late and Ethan got frustrated. Days when Lily had meltdowns and they couldn't figure out why. Days when money was tight or someone got sick or the dishwasher broke at the worst possible time. But they faced it together, and that made all the difference. One evening, about a year after the wedding, Ethan found Victoria on the balcony of their new apartment. They'd moved into a bigger place 6 months after getting married, somewhere with actual space for all of them. She was staring out at the city lights, a cup of tea cooling in her hands. You okay? He asked, joining her. Yeah, just thinking. About? About how different my life is now, how different I am. Regret any of it? Not even a little. She looked at him. You know what I realized? What? For years, I thought success meant never needing anyone, being completely self-sufficient, untouchable. She smiled. Turns out real success is finding people you can count on and letting them count on you. Ethan put his arm around her. Took you long enough to figure that out. Better late than never. True. They stood there in comfortable silence, watching the city. You think we're doing okay? Victoria asked. With Lily? I think we're doing great. She's growing up so fast. I know. What if we mess something up? Then we'll figure it out. Like we always do. Victoria leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm glad I came back. Me too. I almost didn't, you know. I almost convinced myself it was too late, that I'd already burned everything down. But you didn't. No. And coming back, admitting I was wrong, asking for another chance, that was the scariest thing I've ever done. And look where it got you. Yeah. She smiled. Look where it got me. From inside, they heard Lily call out, Mom, Dad, can you help me with something? Victoria laughed. Duty calls. Yep. They went inside together, and as Ethan watched Victoria sit down beside Lily to help her with whatever project she'd gotten into, he thought about how far they'd all come. From a single father barely keeping his head above water, trying to build something from nothing while raising a daughter alone. From a woman who thought power meant isolation, who'd built walls so high she'd forgotten what it felt like to let someone in. From a little girl who just wanted someone to stay. They'd all been broken in their own ways. They'd all been scared. They'd all made mistakes. But they'd found each other, and they'd chosen to stay, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Because that's what love actually was. Not some cosmic force pulling you together, not fate or destiny or any of that. It was choice. Every single day, choosing each other, choosing to show up, to be honest, to forgive, to try again. It was messy. It was imperfect. It required work that never really ended, but it was worth it every single time. Years later, when Lily was older and asked how her parents knew they were meant to be together, they would tell her the truth. They didn't know. Not at first. It wasn't love at first sight. It wasn't written in the stars. It wasn't some inevitable thing. It was two people who were brave enough to let their walls down, who chose to trust even when trust felt impossible, who stayed even when staying was the harder option. They chose each other, every day, through arguments and sick days and financial stress and all the ordinary chaos of building a life together. And that choice, that daily, deliberate choice to stay, was what made it real. On Lily's 10th birthday, Victoria gave her a gift that made everyone cry. It was a photo album filled with pictures from the last few years, family dinners, holidays, Ordinary Tuesday afternoons. Moments that felt mundane when they were happening, but somehow became precious when you looked back at them. On the first page, Victoria had written a note in her careful handwriting. To Lily, when I met your dad, I didn't know what I was looking for. I spent my whole life chasing things that didn't matter: money, power, control. But you and your dad taught me what actually matters: family, love, showing up every day even when it's hard. This album is proof that the best things in life aren't the ones you plan for. They're the ones you choose, every single day. Thank you for choosing me. I love you more than all the words in the world. Mom. Lily read it, hugged Victoria so tight neither of them could breathe, and whispered, I'm glad you stayed. Me too, sweetheart, me too. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan found the note lying on the kitchen counter where Lily had left it. You made her cry, he said. Good tears, I hope. The best kind, Victoria smiled. I meant every word. I know you did. They stood together in the kitchen of the life they'd built, surrounded by the comfortable mess of a family that actually worked. And Ethan thought about everything they'd survived to get here. The fear, the heartbreak, the leaving, the coming back, the slow, painful rebuilding of trust. All of it had led to this moment, to this family, to this home, and he'd do it all again. Every mistake, every hard conversation, every terrifying leap of faith. Because this messy, imperfect, beautiful life they'd created together was worth everything. Victoria took his hand. What are you thinking about? How lucky I am. We both are. Yeah, he said, we really are. And standing there in their kitchen with the dishes still in the sink and Lily's homework scattered across the table and all the ordinary chaos of their lives spread out around them, Ethan finally understood something he'd been learning for years. Love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone who made you want to be better. Someone who saw your worst parts and stayed anyway. Someone who chose you every single day, even when it would be easier to walk away. Victoria had done that for him. He'd done it for her. And together, they'd built something neither of them could have built alone: a family, a home, a life worth living. And that, more than anything else, was the whole point.